Um, First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Ruach HaKodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Genesis, the 17th chapter. And as we went through in the 16th chapter, dealing with Abram, like laying with Hagar, and she ends up running away while pregnant, but the angel of the Lord comes to her and then has her return back, and eventually she gives birth to Ishmael. And when Abram was 90 years old and 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and I will multiply thee exceedingly. So long as you obey me and you follow what I instruct you to do perfectly to the best of your ability, right? Because nobody is perfect, but you get what it means here. I'm going to establish my covenant between me and you, and I'm going to multiply you exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. So of Abram, which we know in process of time, came forth many nations and the chosen line. Because he had nations come of Ishmael and Israel, right? And from Isaac, you had Esau, which was a nation of his own. You had Jacob, and then Abram also had children by Keturah. But as it says here, neither shall thy name be any more called Abram, but thy name shall be called Abraham. In the Hebrew is Abraham, which is a father of multitude. For a father of many nations have I made thee, and I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generations for an everlasting covenant. So I'm going to establish this covenant with you and your descendants in their generations continually. And this was a specific seed. When it says thy seed, it wasn't Ishmael and it wasn't any of Abraham's other sons, but Isaac. Okay, that is who the Lord established this covenant with through Abraham as an everlasting covenant, as it says, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. Now, when you go into the future from here, what nation of people did the Lord establish himself as their God? Israel, which comes from Isaac, which comes from Jacob, or which comes from Jacob, which comes from Isaac. He didn't establish himself as the God of Ishmael or of the God of the other sons of Abram. So that's how we know this seed that he's referring to is referring to that from the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, which is what? All the land of Canaan. Now, what people did the Lord give the land of Canaan to? Go into the book of Exodus, go into the book of Joshua, it'll tell you that. It wasn't Ishmael, and it wasn't any other people who came from Abram or Abraham, but Israel. For an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child or every male among you shall be circumcised. And that would be a part of that covenant. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. That's going to be the sign. So you being circumcised is a sign of this covenant between me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. And there's a reason why the Lord mentioned 8 or 8 days. Because even medically speaking, and you can look it up, when a child is born, as they're developing, those first few days are crucial, but eventually they develop these, I think it's either enzymes or some part of the body that allows the blood to coagulate. All right, And when something coagulates, it means like, if you poke your hand, the blood doesn't just gush out, it starts to swell. And it does that to avoid you bleeding out. Okay. And so it's crucial in those first few days, because up until the 8th day, I believe the whatever it is that's in the body that allows for that coagulation is very high in children around that time of the 8th day. So that's the safest to circumcise them, when you actually cut them so they don't just gush and bleed out. It's especially at that time. Now you have a lot more technology, and they might not do it exactly on the 8th day, but you definitely try to do it around that time, and not really before, even though now they may push it. So in any case, there's a reason why the Lord mentioned that. It says here, every man child in your generations, he that is born in the house, or bought with money of any stranger who is not of thy seed. So any of your descendants, or anybody that a servant or a slave that you buy, if they're of your house, they have to be circumcised. He that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with thy money, must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. So that's a sign that you are under that covenant the Lord made with Abraham. And the uncircumcised man or man-child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. Now, when you deal with the word cut off, it both in here and, as you go into the law, there are different cases, right? There are some cases where cut off means you're actually going to be put to death, and some means you'd be like excommunicated, or separated, lacking rights, right, of inheritance and so on. So usually it depends on the context in which it's being used in. Now, there are cases like during the time of Moses and also Joshua where the Lord was going to slay Moses, in that case, for not circumcising his son because he knew better. Okay, but you don't really see cases in the law per se where people are put to death, for not being circumcised. So, chances are with this part here, it might lean more towards, unless, it's a case by case, or unless for a special case, it might lean more towards not being circumcised, being more so cut off, as in separated from the rest of your people for breaking that covenant. And God said unto Abraham, as for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. So Abram's name got changed to Abraham, and Sarai's name got changed now to Sarah. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Which, when you look in the process of time, yes, that is what ended up happening. Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed, and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? So how is a 100-year-old man and a 90-year-old woman gonna have children? And Abram said unto God, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. Or in other words, he tried to like basically push to say, well, can't you just put this blessing on Ishmael? Because remember, at this point, Isaac isn't even born. This is one of those unheard of kind of things. So, from like a carnal standpoint, it's like, well, there's probably a better chance because Ishmael is also my son. But the Lord said, no. Verse 19, and God said, Sarah, thy wife, shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And the name Isaac in the Hebrew is Yatazachak, which is laughter or laugh. Interestingly enough, because Abraham laughed when he heard it, and so did Sarah, which later on we'll find out because she tried to deny it. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. So the Lord made it clear right there that it wasn't going to be through Ishmael. Abraham said it. He said, what about Ishmael? He said, no, it's going to be Isaac. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. So yeah, I hear you concerning him. I'll give him a blessing too, but not this blessing. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful. Remember what the angel told Hagar. And I will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. So of him you were gonna have, and the prince is going to like chiefs, so probably like a chief of families that would come of Ishmael. They would all be Ishmaelites, but you know they would be, as it says, a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time next year. And he left off talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of the foreskin in the selfsame day, as God said unto him. So he didn't waste no time. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9, so 99 years old, when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old, when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son. So in the very same day, they were all circumcised. And all the men of his house, born in the house, and bought with money of the stranger, were circumcised with him. And that brings us to the end of the book of Genesis, the 17th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachak Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.